Today's episode of the BS Podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That's our presenting sponsor, and it's the only fan-friendly app for buying and selling tickets for sports and music. They've just cut a huge deal with Major League Soccer to help improve sports ticketing from the ground up. They're going to be building a new ticketing system for teams that will be more fan-friendly than the sites you've been stuck with for years. Drop your old ticket app. Use one that's built for 2016. Again, you can do everything on your phone with SeatGeek. Download the free SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. We're also brought to you by Outdoor Voices. It's the best new sportswear out there. They've sourced the best technical fabrics in the world to produce streamlined gear that's built to last, whether you're trotting the bases at beer league softball or pushing the last miles of your next half marathon. Go to outdoorvoices.com/BS for 15% off your first purchase. That includes free domestic shipping and returns. We're brought to you by TheRinger.com, the Ringer Podcast Network, and my new HBO show, Any Given Wednesday. New episode coming Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Watch the first 5 episodes and every bonus clip on HBO Now, HBO Go, and HBO On Demand. Finally, we're selling merchandise for The Ringer, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, and we're helping to raise money for our friends at charitywater.org. The link is right on our website. Just click on merch. Shout out to Scott Harrison. All right, let's roll.
Yeah.
Oh, old school. Friday rolling. Joe House, what's happening?
Hey, it's Friday. We're rolling. The middle of the summer don't stop us.
Nothing to talk about and tons of stuff to talk about. Baseball trade deadline.
Right.
The worst golf major. A bunch of conventions. The Dream Team is coming. I don't know. Wait, let's talk with the trade deadline first. I don't like when the trade deadline's on a Sunday for baseball. It hurts my feelings. I think they should always try to make it Thursday or Friday.
I could care less. I mean, baseball is not relevant to me until September these days. It's too hard to keep track of all of the sports. Basketball goes all the way to June. Golf now is squarely in my targets and sights.
This is the oldest. This is your oldest rant you've ever had. I don't have time to follow baseball.
It's a confession. I love this Nats team. The one thing they need to do is get rid of Jonathan Papelbon.
I know.
That mother effer. After he punched Bryce Harper last year, they should have bounced his ass anyway. He's been terrible this year. He has the worst strikeout per batter faced ratio in all of the major leagues. Can't get anybody out, and that's his only job. Time to go, Papelboner.
I'm with you on not really caring about baseball until September, but I've really enjoyed watching the Red Sox, and there's nothing else. I feel like I've watched a ridiculous amount of the Red Sox because they have a very fun team with a very fun offense, and it's a very atypical Red Sox team because it's not just a bunch of white dudes. It's it's the most diverse Red Sox team we've had, and plus the final Ortiz season where he's killing it. I know. Congratulations. Welcome to the 21st century, Boston Red Sox.
Yeah. I also really enjoy watching this Nats team. Strasburg has been dominant this season, and Scherzer, when he gets going, 20 strikeouts already this season in a game for Scherzer. I really enjoy it, and Dusty Baker has been what a breath of fresh air. Washington's been lucky. We've had 3 great managers since the team arrived here. We had Frank Robinson, Davey Johnson, and my boy Dusty Baker now. And in between some lowlights, but when you have a good manager, it really gives you a comfort, and you can see it. It carries through with the play of the guys. They play with a kind of swagger and a confidence, especially the young guys.
It's kind of like having a reliable spouse versus having a crazy spouse. It's the same kind of comfort you can see in people's eyes when you just have a nice spouse at home who takes care of you, loves you, has affection. That's what a manager does. Manager is just stability.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
make sure that nothing's going to go wrong. And when you have a bad manager, that's when you appreciate the good managers. I can remember every bad manager I've ever had. You know what I mean? Like Grady Little, I had Jimmy Williams and Grady Little back to back. And I'm still carrying the scars, I got to say.
The worst manager here in Washington by far was Matt Williams. Riggleman
you
wasn't
didn't like
bad.
him.
He just made a bad play to get a contract. But Matt Williams was atrocious for both of his 2 years, including the year that he won Manager of the Year.
You have something else that I don't have right now, which is reliable starting pitching. You have three starters that every time they pitch, it's pretty reasonable to expect that they're going to do well. And that's the biggest flaw with this Red Sox team right now. They made the trade for Pomeranz, who I really like and has a nice rhythm to the way he pitches. And at the same time, I just don't see in a playoff game, I don't see him getting to the seventh inning ever. He's one of those guys that, they have the pitch counts now on the side, and it'll be the third inning, and he'll have like 57 pitches. And you'll be like, oh, no. That's not great.
The internet made fun of that acquisition, didn't it?
They did, but it's like it goes back to the whole when you give up these young pitching prospects, unless it's like a Strasburg type of talent, I'm okay with it every time. I think where it hurt them was the pitcher they gave up, Espinosa, would have been better if they were going after Chris Sale this weekend.
Sure.
Like he could have been the same.
Are they not going after Chris Sale this weekend?
I think they are, but the Red Sox have these two prospects that are way above all the other prospects they have, Moncada and Benintendi, outfielder and a second baseman. And I don't know. I don't feel good about giving up either of those guys. It just feels like they're can't-miss guys.
It's Poppy's last season. You're not going to have Poppy anymore.
I know,
when else are you going to do it?
I guess my point is I don't want to pay 100 cents on the dollar for Chris Sale. I don't know if it pushes us over the top. Also, I'm not positive he's a good fit for the city of Boston. He's done a couple weird things, which both of which I kind of
likes weirdos.
Yes and no. The cutting the jersey was weird. It was just weird. Just flat out strange.
It was really funny.
It was funny, but it was also weird. It was like imagine like if somebody did that in your office. It'd be like, I'm not wearing these. Just start shredding them with scissors. I respected the fact that he took a stance and he's like, these uniforms, I'm not going to pitch well in them. Like I told you this, and you're going to make me wear them anyway. I'm mad about this. Like I get it. It's just strange. It's a weird way to handle it.
I could see you doing that.
Oh,
it's a good thing you have a stylist on the show.
I wish ESPN had made me wear weird uniforms like that. That would have affected my performance because I absolutely would have cut them with scissors. But that's the point. I'm not at ESPN anymore. I don't know. I just worry like there's certain guys that just aren't really going to work in Boston. Is the reality of this situation. Like, Westbrook, who we talked about. If Westbrook ever came onto the table in Boston, Chris Ryan and I did a podcast for the Ringer NBA show talking about, all the different financial options Westbrook has with his contract. And the one that makes the most sense, we both agreed, was if he signs a 2-year extension where they rip up his extension this year. So he'd make $9 million more this season than he would have. And then he locks down another year for like $30 million. And then he can become a free agent in the summer of 2018. He'd be a 10-year veteran with the same team at that point, which would enable him to get 35% of the cap. So he could sign. Yeah. So right now he get 30, but if he stays 10 years, he could be 35. So he could sign for 5 years, $240 million or whatever it is. So financially, that makes the most sense. He has the power to determine how it plays out because he could tell them right now, I don't want to stay here. I'm not staying here after this next year, and you should trade me now. Or he could say, let me sign this 2-year deal. Or he could say, do the James Harden extension. I'll sign for 4 more years. Like, who the hell knows? My point is,
sure.
If for some reason he said, I don't want to stay here, trade me to Boston, that's my best chance to win the title, he'd be the most fascinating person that went into Boston in a while who's an athlete because he has real contempt for a lot of like the first take kind of shenanigans with the press. And the Boston local press is a classic, like blow everything out of proportion, super negative. It's everything he hates. And yet at the same time, the Celtic fans would love him because he plays so hard. So
OKC is the only place where he's going to get that protection from the press, where they insulate them and hold the press at bay. Boston would be the polar opposite of that.
Polar opposite. Although OKC, you get the protection until you leave, and then you get annihilated. Then you get retroactively murdered. Poor Durant.
So I'm interested. So you think there's a possibility that Russ Westbrook could not succeed in Boston because of the fit? Is that part of what you're saying?
I think he'll succeed from a basketball standpoint. I think some of the off-court stuff would bother him.
Huh.
I think the way the media handles their business down there, and it's something that it wasn't one of the top 5 reasons I wanted to move to California, but it was in the top 10. So freaking negative. And I really wonder, like, the way he's wired. Like, he was mad at me. I think he wouldn't even look at me at the All-Star Weekend in 2014 because I kept bringing up the Harden trade on national TV, which seemed relevant since they traded one of the 10 best players in the league for like 30 cents on the dollar. And he wouldn't even look at me, much less talk to me after that. Like, Boston does stuff that's way worse than that. And
sure.
I don't know. I just wonder, like, like Boston fans love KG. They love the roll up the sleeves, try 100% of the time, every minute of every game guys. Those are the guys that always go over the best in Boston. So the fans would love him.
Right.
But I think the media would try to mess with him and tweak him and do things.
Well, the media didn't mess with KG, did they?
Well, would you mess with KG? That's the thing. Like,
no, well, I guess I wouldn't mess with Westbrook either. I wouldn't mess with either one of them.
There was real fear with KG. People left KG alone. Maybe Westbrook would be able to bring that fear to the table. I don't know.
Did you and Chris Ryan reach a consensus on what Westbrook should do?
Well, here's my question. If you get to play with Steven Adams, Victor Oladipo, Sabonis' son, Enes Kanter, Andre Robertson, and that's really about it. Where are you going? Are you like a 6 seed, 7 seed? Are you an 8 seed?
I think they have a move yet. I think Presti's not going to be content. I think that there's a big star player that's going to arrive in OKC. And I honestly think his initials begin with B and end with G and have a lake and a riffin in between them. And I think it's the perfect destination for Blake Griffin. And I think OKC is going to figure out a way to get him. And all of a sudden, OKC's right back in the mix, assuming health for everybody. But
interesting you mentioned him because it was quietly reported this month that Matthias Testi, Blake's buddy, who Blake ended up punching a few times, and broke his hand on his face, no longer works with the Clippers.
Saw that news.
Not a Clipper employee anymore. So I don't know what that means, and my guess is that we haven't heard the last of that story, because it would seem like he's a lawsuit candidate, right?
Who? Blake?
Matthias Testi.
You mean a person? He would initiate a lawsuit.
Well, he got punched by somebody who has made $20 million a year for like 5 years.
How about this? The team is owned by Steve Ballmer.
Yes. They were
one of the 10 richest human beings on earth.
Right. So he was punched by somebody who makes $20 to $25 million a year. They were both employees for a team that's owned by somebody who's worth $10 billion a year. Everybody made a big deal about how they were family, all this stuff. We're going to work it out. Now the guy no longer works for the team. I don't know. My shit detector's going off.
No, my point is I think he got paid off. I think Ballmer would take care of him. Ballmer's not going to indulge any distraction like a silly lawsuit. That would be my theory.
I don't know.
You can't just lay off a guy like that who's on the receiving end of a punch from Blake Griffin. You can't just lay him off.
How do you
got to come up with some kind of financial settlement and confidentiality and all the rest of it. They can't have a distraction entering this season that emanates from that sordid episode. They need to have their best foot forward. It needs to be about basketball there in Clipperland.
How do you get Blake to Oklahoma City? I don't know if they have the assets.
I don't know either. That's up to Presti. I'm just describing sort of a hypothesis about how this could go, which confirms the right-headedness of a Westbrook 2-year extension to just let OKC, buy them enough time, let Presti go do something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they have room under the cap by way of KD leaving, right? There's some room that would.
No, they wouldn't
there.
because they'd use all the cap if they were going to redo the Westbrook contract. And I'm sorry to keep talking about this on podcast, but it's easily the most interesting story of the NBA right now because all he has to do is say, I'm not coming back, and they would have to trade him before the season. They would not be able to ride it out.
Sure. Absolutely.
And if he signs for another 2 years, which I think is how it plays out, because I think he's probably in FU mode with this Durant thing, although he's been really quiet. He hasn't said anything.
Good for him, by the way. I'm glad he's been quiet. He doesn't have to be out in public giving reactions.
Yeah, and I agree. And Durant's been a little too available.
Well, he's on the Olympic team. He can't not be available.
Just say I don't want to talk about it. Ask me something else.
I don't like it. He was one of the best 3 players in the league and just, spearheaded a seismic change in the balance of power.
The problem with OKC is that Steven Adams is their second best player right now. And I love Steven Adams. But they lost the length of Durant and Ibaka. Defensively was how they almost beat Golden State in that round 3 because of their length and their athleticism. And they lost Ibaka and Durant. And it's just so hard to recover from. I mean, they're going to have to play a little smaller. But, the Westbrook chip on his shoulder, I'm going for the MVP and I'm shooting 30 times a game season would be one of the most fun NBA subplots of the year. I wish he was on the Olympic team, too. I should mention that.
What happened? Why isn't he on the Olympic team?
Some of these guys just didn't want to go. The reality is we don't have 3 of the 4 most interesting players in the league on that team. We don't have Curry, we don't have LeBron, and we don't have Westbrook. We do have Durant.
Yep. We do.
But, so I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. Wait, let's talk about PGA.
Sure.
So I ran into, on the lot at the Sunset Gower Studios, where all of our business is, I ran into your dude, Jeff Shackelford, your co-host on Shack House, presented by Callaway.
My boy Shaq.
Yeah. And we were talking about how much the PGA tournament, how it's just the ugly stepchild of golf majors. And how it's like the Australian Open, and nobody totally understands.
That's rude.
Well, that's my opinion, and you can't. It's America, and I get to say what I want.
All right.
I don't really understand the purpose of it. The PGA tournament, I don't really get it. I don't understand. It's kind of the poor man's U.S. Open, and I don't understand why they haven't tried to get a little more creative with it. He was saying. So anyway, on your next podcast, you guys are going to try to figure out what they should do with the PGA, how to make the 4th major matter.
The PGA is fine. It does matter.
It's not fine.
97 of the top 100 players in the world are at this tournament.
It's not fine.
It gets the best players in the world.
It's not fine. It's not fine. No.
It's fine.
It doesn't matter. It's not fine.
It has the best field of the 4 majors.
I care about the U.S. Open. I care about the Masters. I care about the British Open, the Open Championship, whatever the F we call it. I don't really care about the PGA. I can't remember who's won any PGAs except for like the year. When did Tiger? He did something. I have no long-term memory of the PGA. It stinks.
So I think there's 2 explanations for that. One, it tends to occur. So we are now competing the 4th major of the season before August, which is extraordinary, right? Unprecedented, and it's to accommodate the Olympics. Most of the time, the PGA is mid-August-ish. It's like in the first 10 to 12 to 15 days of August, and there's a full 3.5 to 4 weeks between the Open Championship, the British Open, and the PGA. So it's really easy to overlook the PGA this year because it feels like we just watched the British Open, and that's because we did.
Yeah.
The other thing is...
So what's special about that? Why not have it in January? Why not have it in early February? Why not have it at Pebble Beach? Why can't Pebble Beach be the PGA?
It could be. There's no reason that it couldn't be. There is definitely been some speculation and some theorizing, some wishful thinking is probably the best way to say it, of coming up with a small rota, a small rotation of courses for the PGA, where it goes between 3 or 4 or 5 different courses, and the real true classics. Now that's kind of the case already, although they don't make it back to various venues with a sufficient frequency. The idea would be to tighten up quite a bit and to highlight. But Pebble already has a tournament every single year. The rotation you would want is something that has West Coast and East Coast, because everybody here on the East Coast loves when major tournaments are on the West Coast because we get to watch them at night.
Right.
It's primetime viewing for us. So that's an element of it.
All right, hold on. So we made some progress here. So my thing is the majors need an identity, right? The U.S. Open matters. It's the most important American tournament. The Masters matters because it's the same course every year. I know it. The British Open matters because they play it in a bunch of different courses, but all of them are dangerous and have like scary roughs and crazy sand traps, and the weather's never good, and it has an identity. My thing is the PGA.
It evokes the history of golf as well.
Yeah. The PGA has no
golf
identity.
Was born.
I don't know what the PGA is. So if you're telling me we're making PGA our West Coast tournament, every time we have the PGA, it's going to be in the West time zone, and it'll come on at night on the East Coast the last couple rounds, and it'll be cool. Like even that would be better than what we have.
I don't know. I think the PGA does afford the opportunity for some of the classic East Coast courses to get some exposure too. Balti being a fine example. Balti's hosted 16 big time events in the last 120 years. Pretty good track record of being a place where important things happen. And there are other courses here on the East Coast. I haven't looked at the to see what the next slate of courses that the PGA is going to be competed at consists of, but it was at Kiowa a few years ago, and that's a great venue for a championship like this. It was at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin twice in the last 10 years because it's visually stunning and has produced two great champions. Most recently, Jason Day. I do like the idea of having more prominent PGA competition on the West Coast, but I don't think you would want to do it at the expense of getting some of the great East Coast courses or Midwest courses, cut out of the rotation.
Yeah, but you just made my point. Have the U.S. Open be East Coast and South and Midwest, and then make the U.S. Open East and South, and make the PGA West Coast / Midwest. At least that would make sense.
You want some consistency. You want there to be a sort of a regional ownership of these other championships.
Well, there's two other ideas. One is they could just take it to some crazy country. Just go to like Asia. And the PGA tournament's in Asia every year, or it's in Australia or wherever. That's one. Two, I've had this idea before, so I'm regurgitating it. Make the PGA the tournament. It's the 4th major. No caddies. You're carrying your own bags. It's golf plus stamina.
What's the point of that?
I want to know who's in shape. You want to win. You want to win the Grand Slam. Get in shape. I want to see Phil Mickelson.
The glaring example is my boy Beef. I mean, he's the glaring counter to that argument. He's the on the other side of that spectrum.
Let's go, Phil Mickelson. Carry your bag. Yeah, let's see it. You don't like that idea?
Well, part of the thing, you have to convince the manufacturers, because the big point of the bags is the walking advertisement, the walking advertisement they get with these huge bags with huge logos on them.
What would be better than Dustin Johnson carrying his bag and the announcers being like, "Oh, Dustin Johnson's laboring. I think that bag's too big for him, John." I think
so it's not just the carrying. They'd have to figure out all the yardages and everything themselves.
Yeah, you're on your own.
They'd have to club selection, yardages, everything.
Yeah, you're on your own.
Just like us regular dudes, huh?
Yeah.
I kind of like that part of it.
Or
I have to figure all that stuff out my own self.
Or they're in carts. And it's the twosomes are just in carts driving around the course, and the bags are in the thing, and that's it. And they're just driving around, and then
Can they drink? Can they have a couple Coors Lights in there?
See, this should be its own PGA
Couple bullets?
tournament. This would make my summer more fun. You know what else makes my summer fun, House? Not having my house get robbed. Burglars skyrocket. Yeah, burglars skyrocket over the summer. Protecting your home and family cannot wait, especially when it gets to July and August, because the crooks, they drive by your house and see if your car's not there, and then they break in. That's why Simply Safe has put together a massive security arsenal for you, a special package that I approved. It's got entry sensors, motion sensors, glass break, everything you need to stop criminals from ever touching your home every day, 24/7, all year round. If a burglar so much as tries to break in, an ear-shattering siren will let him know the police are already on their way. Or let her know. I don't want to say burglars can't be females, because they totally can. Best of all, Simply Safe's 24/7 monitoring is just $14.99 a month. They'll never lock you in a long-term contract. You'll even get a 60-day money-back guarantee. No reason not to try today. Get $100 off my hand-picked security package. Go to simplysafebill.com. The best home security deal you'll ever see. Go to simplysafebill.com. Hey, speaking of staying safe, are you watching the night of?
I deliberately have stayed away. We're only 3 episodes in, right?
You've deliberately stayed away because you don't like being in the national conversation when there's a really good show?
I missed the
You're
first
the
one.
weirdest
We had
freaking person I know.
No. We had something going on the evening of the first one, and I deliberately said we just need. I only need 3 hours to get caught up. That's like that's a Sunday night. I'll just sit down and watch all 3 of them.
It's first of all, you need 3.5 because the first one's 90 minutes. Second of all, it's a mentally grueling show. You're not going to want to watch 3.5 straight hours of the night of. It's like you're going to have to break that one up. I would watch the first show first, and then I'd bang out episode 2 and 3.
Okay.
After.
Maybe I'll watch tonight. Would be a good time for the first episode. Maybe I'll watch it tonight.
Yeah, maybe it's a good time for you to watch one of the best TV shows of the last 5 years. Maybe I shouldn't have to talk you into this. You're saying, what's wrong with you?
Wow, best TV shows the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
All right.
And by the way, just because I have a show on HBO, that's not why I'm touting this show. It's just really good. If it was on some other channel, I would still be bringing it up to you. It's a really good show.
Yeah, I deliberately, not only did I not, after I knew that we were going to miss the first one, and I'm saving it, I'm also saving all of the social media and commentary. Haven't read one review of it. Don't know anything about it. I like to walk into a show not knowing anything.
You don't know anything?
Just being surprised by all of it. I don't know anything. All I know is what I've seen from the HBO commercials, which, a crime's committed, the dude's in jail, and the guy from Rounders is yelling at him not to say anything to anybody.
Did you just call John Turturro the guy from Rounders?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's John Turturro. You just called him because you think he's Knish?
Well, he's yelling at him like that.
The craziest thing about this
show... It's not my fault. I'm not wrong.
Gandolfini was supposed to be in the Turturro role, and then he died.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's a pretty good TV what if, because if you watch this show thinking of Gandolfini in that part, it's kind of mind-blowing. But it's very good. My thing is there's so much TV on, and yet I can't get excited about most of the TV. Everybody's
Did you try any of iRobot this season?
Mr. Robot?
iRobot, isn't that what it's called?
No, it's called Mr. Robot. No, I tried the first. I know people like it. I'm not down on it. I don't want to make fun of it. I tried the first episode. It just didn't take. Maybe I wasn't in the right mood for it.
You mean last year or this year?
I tried the first episode of season 1. I wanted to support Christian Slater, and I watched it. I also tried the first episode of Stranger Things on Netflix, which I liked more. Because it's kind of, it's so, like, if you're a child of the 80s, it's basically the show that made for you. It feels like it was made in 1983, just with better, like, camera equipment. And Winona's in it. I'm still in Winona's corner all these years later.
Well, because she's a first love.
Yeah, Heathers.
Right?
Yeah.
Never forget a first love.
Lucas, Heathers, Reality Bites, obviously.
Right.
A great what if, because she should have been in Godfather 3 and she had to bow out at the last minute because of quote unquote heat exhaustion. Nobody knows what actually happened, but then Coppola had to put his daughter in there and it ruined the movie. Good what if.
It's true. It's true.
I still don't mind that movie.
Happened.
Though. Yeah. Oh, wait, back to the PGA. So we're taping this Friday. I'm sure stuff's going to happen, but you really like Dustin Johnson. That was your main dude for this one?
Sure. Well, I mean, he's been a main dude. He's been a good horse to ride.
You had 3. Who were your 3?
I made full unit wagers on Dustin Johnson, Rory, and Adam Scott.
What's the most fun?
I made half unit wagers though.
Yeah.
On 4 others.
Yeah.
The 4 guys for the half units: JB Holmes, not going to work out. Patrick Reed, who is at the moment 5 under on his round today.
Yeah.
And tied for the lead. Brandon Grace, who hasn't teed off yet, but it's the even par, and Ricky Fowler, who acquitted himself pretty well in an opening round yesterday. And I'm not giving up on Rory yet. Rory leads the tour in second round scoring. So I expect a bounce back. And he actually was great off the tee, and his iron play was fine. He could not putt to save his life. He did not have a birdie in his opening round yesterday. Dustin Johnson, I've already said my goodbyes to all of that capital.
Oh, he didn't do well?
He was 7 over.
Yesterday. Oh, I didn't
I
even
thought
know.
That's why you brought him up.
No, I don't check in with the majors till Saturday. I look at the leaderboard and I go, yeah, I don't do Thursday, Friday.
You're not going to see Dustin Johnson this weekend.
Okay.
Which means you're not going to see Paulina either.
It's the best. The best was when he won, and I was telling my wife, watch this. The Gretzky daughter is going to put on an all-time performance, and she did. She had the tears going. It was great. It was. I haven't not since Bridget Wilson Sampras have I seen a better acting performance. Although I'm sure it was genuine too. But you just knew she was going to bring it. I like when the wives get really, really, when they really own the camera time that they know they're getting, and she definitely does.
Oh, for sure.
What's the most fun story on that could happen on Sunday that you would be the most excited about? What golfer being in the mix?
So Spieth is having a great day today, and I think one of the cool stories, so far this season, each of the 3 majors have been won by a first-time winner. And the big 3, which was what we entered the season with, the big 3 consisting of Jordan Spieth, Jason Day, and I call him Jordan Spieth, Jordan, Jason, and Rory, have not really been up to the task in the majors so far. Rory's had a couple top 10 finishes. Spieth has been sort of off the map. So I would like it if we had, Day played well yesterday. Spieth is playing well today. And those 2 guys were in the final group at last year's PGA. Yeah. Running it back could be fun. I like that storyline.
So at least if we
am rooting for.
If we got 2 of those 3, that's a fun Sunday for me.
Yeah. And Rory as well. I'm not counting out Rory. His 4 over yesterday could be a 5 or 6 under. I'm really rooting for a 6 under today because I might have a wager on 6 under. Well, there was an over under on that one.
Imagine how much fun Sunday would be if they were carrying their own bags or riding in carts together. Imagine that, House. I'm going to talk you into this at some point.
You're a whack job.
Is there any old dude who's kind of lingering, who's in the mix? I like when there's like the 45-year-old lifer who's never really been there.
Lee Westwood had a good opening round. He was 1 under or 2 under, and he's long been best to not win a major. He's been on that list for 20 years now. So he's probably the best old dude. Steve Stricker also was decent. He's either even or 1 under. He's 49 years old, and he finished.
He's never won, right?
Second or third. He's not won a major. No.
He's always kind of lingering 4 strokes back on Sunday for like a minute.
Yeah, but very solid. Through 4. He's at the age where he's only playing 11 or 12 tournaments on tour.
He's like the Richard Jefferson of the PGA Tour.
It's true. That's the best thing about golf. You could be Phil's right there. Phil's 46, +1 yesterday.
Then we're gonna go because we got to call Jacko. I know.
Jacko's gonna have some things to say.
I know. I don't like the snarky Phil Mickelson comments about how he always is in second place. Snarky? Yeah, I feel like there's some snarkiness toward Phil a little bit. Oh, it's second place again. Oh, you're doing well, and when Phil Mickelson always brings the best out of somebody else, all that kind of stuff. I think Phil Mickelson's awesome.
I don't know. He shot 65.
I'm with you.
In the Open Championship.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I'm pro Phil Mickelson. I think he did everything he could have done that day.
Me too.
I loved it. All right, so you're coming on.
That's what made it so good to watch.
You're coming on Shack House, presented by Callaway, on Monday with a recap with Jeff
Yeah, we'll have a
Shackelford.
recap of the PGA.
And
yes, indeed.
After you recap it, can you guys figure out what the future of the PGA tournament should be? Just come up with your best option. I want to hear that. Also, we should mention, hello, friends. Jim Nantz was on Shack House this week. Hello, my friends.
He was. He was outstanding. He went on. He had a couple great takes. One take on the proper use of, or the proper intersection of television replay and the rules of golf, which somebody's got to figure out at some point.
Yeah.
After the debacles at the U.S. Open and the women's U.S. Open. The women's Open was a little less of a debacle. But he had a great commentary on that. He also went a little bit get off my lawn about the idea of having a signature call. I asked him about the call. He had done an interview earlier this year before the Super Bowl 50, with Dickie Deach, and he had observed in that interview that the Devin Hester return touchdown in 2007, the Bears against the Colts, might be his kind of the historical call. So I started saying, well, it's interesting that would be the one for. He's like, house. This is not about a call. And then he went on a whole thing, and it was terrific. It was really, really good. About, the craft is not about a signature moment. It's about the experience that you deliver over the course of the competition. And it's part of why I think people like him at golf. But it was a really good rant. Two great Jim Nantz rants.
It was a podcast for the ages.
I also invited myself to play St. Andrews with him. He's never played St. Andrews.
Good move. You and Jim Nantz should be best friends. Maybe you could replace Phil.
Like that.
You could replace Phil Simms in his life. Joe House, thanks as always. Enjoy the PGA this weekend.
Yeah, you too. They're not going to ride in carts, though.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep out holding hope anyway. Talk to you later. Before we call Jacko, a quick break to talk about Headspace. Most problems begin in your head. Stress, depression, fear, sleeplessness, they start in your mind. They worm their way into the rest of your life. Do you know you can change that in just 10 minutes a day with meditation? That's where the Headspace app comes in. Headspace is meditation made simple. There's a mountain of science showing the positive effects of mindfulness. The Headspace app provides guided meditations you can use whenever you want, wherever you want, on your phone, computer, or tablet. Their sessions focus on everything from dealing with stress and depression to helping you eat more mindfully, or even to get you to sleep easier. It's 1% of your day that can change the other 99%. Download the Headspace app and start your journey toward a happier, healthier life. Learn more at headspace.com/BS. Headspace.com/BS. Also, our buddies at FrameBridge are the ones who frame nearly every poster in my office, as well as a couple on our Any Given Wednesday site. We did a Facebook Live with Chris Ryan on Wednesday, and there was a big Doobie Brothers poster behind us that a couple people were emailing me about. 48 by 48. Not an easy poster to frame. They crushed it. FrameBridge is amazing. Go to framebridge.com, pick out your frame, let their designers help you choose. They can send you a prepaid package to ship your item safely. You can simply upload a digital picture on the FrameBridge site or app. You can even send them an Instagram picture. They can frame that. They have experts that will custom frame your items in days, not weeks, not months, days. Deliver your finished piece directly to your door, ready to hang. That's why InStyle called FrameBridge the genius site that makes custom framing easy. They even offer a happiness guarantee. Instead of the hundreds you'll pay at a framing store, their prices start at $39, all shipping free. And the TLC they put in their framing and packaging is incredible. It's one of my favorite companies. I am a FrameBridge groupie, as I've said many times. Their prices start at $39. Again, all shipping free. Go to framebridge.com, use promo code BS. You get 15% off your first order. Framebridge.com. And now we're calling Jacko. On the line, as promised, our friend Jacko. He was on twice last week during the insane Republican National Convention. And we promised him equal time. We have equal time here on the BS podcast. We promised him equal time this week. He's a diehard Republican, lifelong Yankee fan. I have no idea how we're friends, but we've been friends since 1988, September. And roommates. We've seen each other naked. It's been a lot of laughs, a lot of debauchery, and now one of the most important moments of our friendship, where I get to give him equal time to talk about the DNC.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. How about that intro?
Wow, that was really quite something.
Yeah. What were your thoughts? What was your takeaway?
Well, actually, I watched a lot more of the DNC than I expected to, and I guess just being a political junkie, I got kind of sucked into it. I knew I had to do yeoman's work of watching Hillary's speech last night, because you told everyone last week you were going to call me, so I could do a recap of what I saw. So I forced myself to watch it last night, but I watched a lot of it, and I mean, you have to. I disagree with the Democrats vehemently, but you have to applaud their conventioneering skills, because unlike the shit show that we witnessed last week, I mean, that's what a professional convention that is well run and well organized and hits the themes that one wants to hit and uses a convention as what it should be, which is essentially a free TV commercial for your party and your candidate. I mean, they hit all the themes they wanted to hit in terms of, basically wrapping themselves in the flag and patriotism and optimism, and Ronald Reagan's Morning in America, keeping the Bernie bros at bay to the best that they could, doing something to reach out to disaffected Republicans that aren't Trumpians, and they did it all without Scott Baio or Antonio Sabato Jr. So really kudos for that.
Yeah, so the most interesting thing I read on Twitter, which is a rare statement in itself.
Yeah, right.
I forget who said it, but somebody was saying, like, if you're an 18-year-old kid and you watch both of those conventions, why would you gravitate toward the Republicans? And I think, like, regardless of how this election turns out, that's got to be the most interesting dilemma / question / whatever that the Republicans have to be thinking about going forward, because, you're trying to build future generations. Like,
right.
16-year-old Jacko, if you didn't have your dad as like such a diehard Republican and you're just watching both those conventions, you would end up gravitating toward the one that seemed like it was well run.
I mean, this is, there's a whole litany of regrets and recriminations to follow. But one of the things with the Republicans is, I was an unabashed Rubio guy, but Rubio is like our age, basically. I think he's like 46 or 45 or 46. Cruz is young too, but he seems older. But like, if you run Rubio as a nominee, right, he's a new, fresh face. So if you're like an 18-year-old or a millennial or whatever, and maybe you're not fully on board with the Republican platform, certainly, but you look at this fresh-faced guy, it's a new generation going forward versus Hillary, who's been on the public stage for the past 25 years that you may have grown up with as a 20-something. There may be an inclination to go with the fresh face as opposed to the retread that you've seen forever, especially in allegedly a change election where the polls say that 70% don't like the direction of the country, the way things are going. So, but then when you give the opponent to the status quo is Donald Trump, which is just to put a freaking brain-damaged lunatic game show host in the Oval Office. It's asinine. And you look at the two conventions, and you have all the crazy Trump people that were delegates, and they're screaming "lock her up," and I don't take to my fainting couch about that, but just viewing that versus waving American flags and America's great and it's always been great, it's going to continue to be great and get better. I mean, which one would you gravitate to? That's exactly right. I mean, it's just such a disaster.
Reagan was your favorite politician of all time. And they played the Reagan playbook a little bit at the DNC.
They totally did.
That had to hurt a little bit.
And the amazing thing is, I mean, they had this guy. I caught the tail end of it, but
they had this general last night, General Allen, who came out, and I guess he was, he was involved in Iraq or Afghanistan, I forget which one, but a military leader, and they have all these veterans and heroes and Medal of Honor winners, and when some of the Bernie folks started to say no more war, and they were drowned out by USA chants at the Democratic convention.
Yeah.
Like waving USA signs, cheering a general saying, like, mark our words, we're going to go get you dead or alive, or whatever he said, like this, saber-rattling, militaristic, full-throated defense of American patriotism and nationalism and exuberant foreign policy. And then you have Trump saying, like, we suck, we never win, we're awful. It's like, two parties flipped. It's hard to, poor Reagan is probably spinning in his grave right now to see, like, what the hell's going on.
Do you think they duct taped Trump to a sofa last night during Hillary's speech and put his phone out of his reach?
They had to. I thought the whole convention, you could, and it was funny because I went to bed right after Hillary's speech, but then I woke up this morning and I was looking on Twitter, and so the first couple responses from Trump were grammatically correct, and didn't call her crooked Hillary or didn't use any pejoratives. So obviously those are written by campaign people like Manafort or some other flunky who's in charge of things. And then I saw later tweets where he's he's going after Bloomberg and calling him little Mike Bloomberg or something. Didn't have the guts to run. So you could see that he obviously got his phone back, but he definitely was in a straitjacket, and they keep the phone away from him because you can always tell when he tweets, and he was sitting there like venting to tweet. Definitely,
it would have been almost funnier and more self-aware if during the speech they had duct taped him to a chair, and they took a picture of him duct taped to a chair and just tweeted that out. It actually would have been funny.
Right, he could have stolen the night with that. Yeah.
One of the weirdest hours on YouTube right now, and that's really saying something, is the Donald Trump roast from 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, from Comedy Central.
Yeah, and Jeff Ross roasts him, and is making fun of him in all these different ways. And Trump actually had a sense of humor about it. And
really
was kind of rolling with it and playing off and stuff like that. And that's he's had a million issues in this whole election cycle, but the one thing is just a lack of sense of humor about himself. I think is the strangest thing.
Well, we may have talked about it last week, but there was an article I read, and it was, I can't remember where it was now, but I think it was from this writer, McKay Coppins, who wrote about he blames himself to some degree for Trump because he had spent some time with him and written a critical column about it, and then it turns out that Trump was like, how dare he criticize me? I'll show him I'll run for president. And there was a long litany of people in there, and one of the anecdotes that was mentioned was after Trump did his crazy birth certificate thing about the president, and he went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and that Obama, I guess, and his people had talked to Judd Apatow or something, and that they had all these zingers for Trump. And it basically, Obama was like, they said, do you think this is too far? And Obama was like, no, we're going for it.
Right.
So basically, tore Trump down to his face. And it said, he just sat there and, didn't really laugh. He didn't smile. He didn't play along. And then he, sort of huffed out of the room. And it was
that was it.
Further bred his inferiority complex. It was like, I'll show them, I'll run for president.
Right.
So I think, it's funny to say that in this roast that he actually had sort of a self-deprecating humor or laughed along with it. Maybe he was drugged up or something, but at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, it said it was noticeable that he didn't like Obama cutting him down and talking about his repeated failings. So it was one more chip on Donnie's shoulder.
Did you see Obama's speech?
I saw most of it, yes. I saw most of it. I didn't see the whole thing, but because I'm old and it was late, but I did see most of it.
Okay, so you're, obviously not an Obama fan.
Right.
When you
I mean, he's an amazing speaker, though, and I mean, there's very few politicians that can I mean, it's hard to command. I've never spoken to a auditorium full of 50,000 people or 20,000, whatever it seats in Philadelphia, but there's very few people that can command a big room like that. It's hard to do, and you could see it with other speakers. Other speakers this week, Tim Kaine was just objectively terrible, you know. But Obama, there's very few politicians, certainly in our lifetime, that are able to hold a room like that, and know when to raise your voice and when to modulate it, so people have to listen in. I mean, that whole room was like, of course, that's preaching to the choir, but that whole room was hanging on his every word, and there's very few politicians who are as good at it as he is. It's his strongest strength, really.
I think he's got to be one of the best speakers I've ever seen, if not at the top, because, as you said, like, there's little tricks that he does. He's always in command. The pauses that he takes, or like sometimes the crowd will start cheering and almost everybody else stops talking when the crowd starts cheering. And sometimes he's like a pastor where he'll hear the noise building and he'll raise his voice to kind of match it.
Right.
And then the sense of humor part and the ability to ad lib. I just think like it's basically him and The Rock, I think, are the two best public speakers. It's like watching The Rock cut a WWE promo.
You know who else is good is Biden. I mean, Biden's like an old-time, like, backslapping pal, and the room loves him too, and he knows how to do it too, and he did the same thing in terms of like he owned that crowd. And I mean, there's many other speakers of the ones I watched, that they didn't own the crowd, and it's hard to do. I mean, I don't think Hillary is a particularly good speaker.
No, she's not.
And I'm not being sexist or partisan, because Michelle Obama was wonderful at it too. But Hillary is just
fantastic.
I didn't think Chelsea was very good. Chelsea may have many wonderful qualities, but her droning, like, affectless speech last night was really, like, brutal to watch. I mean, it's great that she loves her mother, and that's all well and good, but her delivery was terrible. I mean, and, she obviously inherited that from Hillary versus from Bill, because Bill is another one that can control the room and is, a great natural pal. Well, was. I'm not sure if he is anymore. It might be time for us to have a national conversation about Bill Clinton. Some bad looks on him last night, just like sitting there, like with his mouth open and like nodding off, seemingly. And
they got to work on him with the keeping the mouth open thing, because a couple of times it looked like he should have just he should have been in a blanket.
Yeah, exactly. He just didn't look well at just different times, and it's
but then other times he'd look awesome though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't know. I don't even want to know what's going on there. But
he's old.
Yeah, I guess so. A lot of living in those years.
I thought best speakers, Obama won. I think Biden was great. I thought Obama's wife was great, and Antonio Sabato Jr. I think that was the top four. I thought Sabato had some great moments. But Clinton went on way too long. It was like a dad at his daughter's wedding who had paid for everything and had a couple drinks and was just like, you guys are all here. You're gonna have to listen to me now.
Oh yeah.
But he had one moment in that speech that really would have gone over well, and I think would have been great for him, and I think would have really ignited the crowd in a good way. He was talking about how just dogged Hillary is, and how she doesn't quit, and she's gonna turn every stone, and he had this whole riff about it. And right at the end, all he had to do was say, "You know who else she didn't quit on? Me." And the crowd would have gone fucking apeshit, and they just would have loved it, and he would have at least acknowledged that they had probably the most public marital difficulties of any famous couple ever. It just to talk about their marriage and their relationship and all this stuff, and not mention that he embarrassed her in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
All you have to do is one sentence.
I don't know. That's a tough one to touch. I mean, obviously it's an enormous elephant in the room, and everybody in the place and everybody watching knows it. Yeah. I was thinking about that this morning when I was thinking back about last night, and I'm like, if that was me, like to my wife, right, and we were caught in that way, had done that and were caught, and the whole country knew it, and like to sit there, like I couldn't even imagine like sitting in my house with like the scorn of my wife looking at me.
I know.
And he does that with the whole country knowing it.
It's amazing.
And she gives this speech and said, "Oh, you talked about our conversation, and we continued that conversation." It's complete horseshit. There's this wonderful couple. I mean, give me a freaking break. But to sit there, like, just so completely, like, shameless, and just be like, "Oh, great job, honey, I love you." Like, come on. I mean, I don't know how I could sit there. I would be so mortified.
That's the thing. If he had just had one line, he addresses it. It's great. It shows a lot of character on his part, the whole thing. I think he should have done it.
She did something about, we've been together in good high times and low times or something or whatever. And it's like, she tried to get past that as quickly as possible, but it's just so oddly awkward. It's crazy.
We've had some trials and tribulations.
Yeah, her emphasis on words and like what she emphasizes and which words she stretches out. It's just people have different talents, and I don't think that public speaking is really one of hers. We will remember Obama as a wonderful orator. I'm not sure we're going to remember Hillary as a wonderful speaker.
Yeah, and you could argue that that's like that's like the cherry in the hot fudge sundae of that job. Ultimately, the sundae, I guess, is what matters. Most people aren't speakers. Reagan was a really good speaker.
Right.
JFK.
I mean, Tim Kaine, and him doing that Trump impersonation, and it's like,
that's rough.
If you're not naturally funny or that's not your shtick, like you don't have to try to do that, and like I didn't even really mind the Spanish, but he kind of overdid it, and he's like, "Listo, means ready." It was like ninth grade Spanish tape.
Tim Kaine, I love. Everybody was gushing about him. Tim Kaine, he's the greatest guy I've ever saw. A family was trapped under a truck, and Tim Kaine lifted the truck up with his bare hands.
I know. Yeah, and the Republican vice president, this guy Mike Pence, who was the governor of Indiana, and he's like totally milquetoast too. So that Mike Pence Tim Kaine debate, boy, get your tickets. That's gonna be a great one.
Good one. They definitely scheduled that against a major sporting event.
Put that against Game 7 of the World Series. God.
I was thinking during the Biden speech that he's the great what if in the Democratic Party, I think, of the last 30 years. Because
absolutely.
Our generation, like we're in college, like Joe Biden plagiarist. You just like write him off. They didn't even think twice. Right. Like there's no way. That plagiarism thing was a huge deal in the 80s. And it just seemed like it was a career ender. And now you look at him and just it seems like everybody loves him. Like I've never heard a president rave about a vice president like Obama raves about Biden. And
Reagan and Bush were a little bit like that too.
I guess they were.
Obama
and
Biden.
Right.
Obama and Biden even more. And I mean, the shame from Biden's perspective, and really it's an awful thing that his son, he's obviously very close with his family, and his son died of cancer. And had his son not gotten sick and not died, I don't think there's any doubt that Biden would have run. I mean, I think he was dying to run. And that, obviously going through that, he can't even imagine it, so he couldn't, mount a presidential campaign. Totally understandable, but I think he would have wiped the floor with Hillary myself in primaries.
I did too. I agree.
And I think he'd be he'd already be basically measuring the Oval Office for carpet, choosing it, because he'd be beating Trump by 10, 15 points. It wouldn't even be close. I
still think Trump can win.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Like I said earlier, these right track, wrong track numbers, like, some overwhelming majority of people think the country's on the wrong track. So if you really believe it's on the wrong track, why are you going to vote for basically Obama's third term with Hillary, right?
Yeah.
And Trump does have this appeal to these people that have been left behind by the new economy and the Rust Belt, and maybe in Pennsylvania, if he gets enough blue collar, white, non-college educated voters in Pennsylvania to swing Pennsylvania, I'm dubious of that, but were he to do that, that would be enormous for him.
What's your goal for the Yankees trade deadline?
I would like them to trade Andrew Miller if they could get an enormous haul of prospects. I'm very happy to see that Papelbon blew up again last night and had to be taken out in the ninth inning. And he didn't blow the save last night, but they took him out before he could blow it.
Yeah.
And now that the Cubs have gone to get Chapman, I would like to see the Nationals say, "Here, please take all of our prospects because we want to make a run and we need a closer." And the haul for Miller is going to be higher than Chapman because he's under contract through 2018.
And he doesn't have the series of domestic violence stories that accompany the Chapman acquisition.
Right. Good guy on and off the field.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to sell and get younger and get hope for the future. I'm already all in on Gleyber Torres that they got for Chapman. So I'd like to be in on some more prospects because even though they've been okay, they've been decent since the All-Star break. I mean, the reality is, they just don't have a team to really go anywhere. So what's the point of getting in and getting into the one-game wild card, which they're still 5 or 6 games out of? I'd rather build for the future.
I vote build for the future, and it gives us more time to devote to A-Rod's farewell season.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of rumors
there.
that they might just eat that contract and just waive him if they were sellers. But
ooh,
Yeah, there was talk that there was rumors about that they might just say goodbye to Teixeira and goodbye to A-Rod now. Teixeira's contract is up this year, so it's not as much to eat, but A-Rod has a lot of money still to eat.
You know who they should trade him to? Fox. We need A-Rod for the stretch run. Just get A-Rod on TV. It's over. Baseball's done. Good. He's awesome on TV. Get him on TV.
He really is.
Get it. Make the move. A-Rod should just retire. All right, Jacko.
All right.
Fun recap. Enjoy the weekend. You're the best.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Anytime y'all want to see me again, rewind this track right here, close your eyes, and picture me rolling.
Thanks again to Simply Safe. Remember, burglaries skyrocketed over the summer. Simply Safe created a phenomenal security package with entry sensors, motion sensors, and glass break, and everything else you need to stop burglars from getting into your home. Get $100 off that package by going to simplysafebill.com. Thanks to Headspace. Change your life in just 10 minutes a day with the Headspace app. They give you guided meditations you can use whenever you want. Focus on sleeping, eating, stress, depression. They can make anything work. Download the Headspace app and start your journey toward a happier, healthier life. Learn more at headspace.com/BS. Don't forget to check out theringer.com. Some terrific pieces this week about the NFL, Jason Bourne, the conventions, the World Series of Poker, an especially weird Shea Serrano week in a good way. A lot of good stuff. Don't forget about our other 7 podcast feeds on the Ringer Podcast Network, including Favreau and Pfeiffer Keeping It 1600. Favreau was involved in Obama's speech, so listen to that podcast. They've been breaking down the conventions all month. My new NBA show, Any Given Wednesday, returns August 3rd, 10 p.m. on HBO. Check out our new splash page on HBO Now and HBO Go. That includes every episode and every bonus clip we've done, including last week's show with Danny McBride, Christina Hendricks, Michael K. Williams, and Michael Rappaport, who I defeated in our fake Deflategate trial. Thank you, Judge Joe Brown. And thanks for listening. We'll be back next week on the BS Podcast.